So, there's this viral video making the rounds, and it claims there's a massive fraud scandal brewing in Minnesota that's being totally covered up. It all kicked off with a really fiery debate on CNN. In this explainer, we're going to break down the video from the channel Nerk News to get to the bottom of the accusations and the big media battle that's right at the heart of it. And it all started with this one line. Republican strategist Scott Jennings said this live on CNN, and wow, it just immediately ignited the firestorm that we're about to unpack. Okay, first up, let's look at that initial clash on CNN. We're going to dig into the exact exchange and focus on how a political comment was instantly flipped into an accusation of bigotry. This is what set two totally different narratives on a collision course. And there it is, the immediate clapback from the CNN host. The Nerk News video really zeroes in on this moment, where the comment isn't just seen as a political critique, but as a deliberate attack meant to, in their words, denigrate the religion of a group of people. But here's the pivot. Jennings fires back, completely reframing his own point. He's basically saying, whoa, hold on, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a political strategy by the Democrats. And then he immediately connects that strategy to what he calls widespread fraud happening in the state. So this is really the heart of the conflict, as the source video lays it out. You have the exact same comment being interpreted into completely opposite ways. One side says it's a political critique about alleged fraud. The other side says it's an unacceptable cultural attack. And that disagreement, right there, is what drives the entire narrative of the video. All right, section 2, the fraud allegations. So what is the actual scandal that kicked off this whole TV debate in the first place? Let's dig into how the Nerk News video actually presents these massive fraud claims. Okay, so the central claim that Nerk News is making is this. There's a huge systemic fraud scheme running through fake daycare centers. And these centers are supposedly siphoning off millions and millions of dollars in taxpayer money, all happening within Minnesota. And the number that the video attaches to this whole thing is just staggering. $9 billion. According to the source, that figure represents the unbelievable scale of taxpayer money that was allegedly stolen, all because of what they call a massive failure of government oversight. This quote really captures the source's entire view on the media's role here. The video argues that instead of actually investigating these really serious fraud claims, big outlets like CNN are just trying to discredit the independent journalists who are the ones bringing the story to light. Okay, section 3. Let's talk about the accusations of bigotry. Now we're going to flip the coin. The Nerk News video claims that when officials were confronted with these fraud allegations, the main response wasn't to deny the facts, but to accuse the people making the claims of being bigots. The source video highlights this specific clip of Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz. And the claim here is that instead of addressing the fraud allegations head-on, the governor is directly equating the very act of investigating it with an expression of white supremacy. And the video tries to reinforce this point with another clip, this time from a guest on CNN. This quote is used as evidence that any kind of scrutiny is being intentionally framed as a deplorable, targeted attack against the entire Somali community. All right, on to section 4, independent versus establishment media. This all leads to a much bigger theme in the Nerk News video, this idea of a battle for the narrative, pitting independent journalists against what the source calls the establishment media. This slide does a great job of showing the really clear battle lines the source video is drawing. On one side, it's positioning independent reporters as the truth tellers, the ones who are just seeking accountability. And on the other, it's framing CNN as a discredited messenger that's just out there protecting a political party. And to back up its argument against CNN's credibility, the source brings up several past news stories. The video calls them hoaxes and presents them as clear examples of the network getting major events fundamentally wrong. And this number is key to the source's entire argument. It points to the 93 million views on reporter Nick Shirley's video as definitive proof that the public is hungry for this story and is actively going around traditional media outlets to get it. Okay, section 5, debating accountability. This is really where the video's core argument comes together. The focus shifts away from media criticism to a direct demand for real-world consequences for the people in power. According to the video, getting to real justice here is a two-step process. The argument is that just prosecuting the people who directly committed the fraud, that's not enough. The systemic problem will only be solved when high-level officials are also held responsible. And this quote from Scott Jennings is pretty much the thesis statement for the entire accountability argument. The idea is simple. If there are no consequences for the leaders and administrators who are supposed to be watching these programs, then the cycle of fraud is just going to keep happening.
And then the source zooms way out. It presents the whole Minnesota situation not as some isolated incident, but as part of a national pattern of failure and corruption, specifically in what it calls blue states. It points to massive fraud in California and accuses D.C. of manipulating crime data.
And so this is where the source material leaves its audience. It ends with a final, really provocative question that reframes the whole debate, moving it past media bias and cultural arguments to a fundamental question about political integrity, about accountability, and ultimately about justice under the law.